Taking control of the car buying experience. Demand the most for your money. Here's the Car Buyer Advisor.
All right, into the show today. Today we rescheduled the call-in and ask the experts corner because on the first of the month this month we had some holidays and we had people that were not going to be able to be in the studio. So what we did is we're doing the call-in segment. So today you're going to have an opportunity to talk to several of our local business communities, owners and management. And you're going to be able to ask questions that can benefit you and other people listening. So please, no question is a poor question. The only question that's not a good question is the one that's left unanswered. So this is your opportunity to get free advice from the industry experts. And we're going to give you that phone number now. That's 775 area code 823-1920, 823-1920. And throughout the show, I'll give you that number again if you missed it. But we're going to start by introducing the businesses that are here to talk about your preparation for summer travel. Please welcome to the show Tom O'Donnell first with Preferred Auto Care in Sparks. And let's tell us a little bit about Preferred Auto Care and what you do over there.
Thank you, Mitch. Well, we're at 1705 Gregg Street at Rock and Gregg. We're specialists on Hondas, Acuras, Toyotas, Lexus, and Subarus. We've been there for over 2 decades, and we're family-owned and operated.
And run a terrific business. If you have any of those makes, this is the place to go for those. Also with us in the studio is George Green, the operations manager at Wild West Chevrolet. Tell us a little bit about Wild West and what they're up to out there in Yerington.
Well, we're having a great time out there, Mitch. We're a franchise Chevrolet dealer. We are definitely into certified pre-owned. We're into used cars, service. We're a full-line franchise dealership.
Well, and we'll probably talk a little bit more about it more in the show, but you also have a pricing strategy unprecedented in the automotive industry.
We do, and it's working really well.
And then Michelle Anderson with Nevada Mobil Automotive. Are you there online with us?
I am, Mitch. Can you hear me?
I sure can. Tell us a little bit about Nevada Mobil Automotive. And I think mobile is the operative term, but you also have a stationary business.
We do. We're located at 2540 Sutro Street in Reno, and we are mobile, so we do come to you. You do not have to come to us. We have the shop for big jobs like engine and transmission repairs, and yeah.
And mobile. They don't have to waste their day going somewhere. They can just have you come to them. And I am also representing the business, the Sport Haus. And for those members in our community that may have known me from running that business several years ago, I returned a couple of months ago as the general manager at Sport Haus Motor Cars out there on South Meadows. And really the standard for the business selection model for the Car Buyer Advisor came from running that business in the automotive industry, an unprecedented level of commitment of quality, customer care, and just a commitment to ethics. And that's the standard for the business model for the show that you're listening to today. And it's just a joy to be back there and having that connection with you through this show. We said we're going to talk about the preparation for summer travel. And maybe, Michelle, maybe you can begin us with the travel preparation and why that's important, preparation.
Okay, well, we decided to talk about travel preparation today because it is summertime. A lot of families are traveling, and, you just want to be safe while you're out there on the road. So we have some tips and on what can be done and to keep your family and your car safe while you're traveling throughout that summer season.
Well, and I think you said it. Maybe probably the first tip would be an inspection before you get out on the road.
Correct. And again, being mobile, we actually do an inspection. We'll come out to you and do the inspection. I know other shops such as Tom's and Wild West, you can bring the car in. They'll do an inspection for you most of the time. Usually what's inspected is coolant, brakes, make sure the AC works, mostly the safety issues and something, some of the stuff that could, like coolant affects overheating, your oil, that kind of stuff. It really needs to be checked before you travel.
Now, Tom, with Preferred Automotive, you probably see this every year. Even though we can say, have your car checked out before you get out on the road, how often do you get those I'm out on the road from another city phone calls anyway?
Oh, we get them. We get them quite often. Yeah, and one of the things that people don't realize too sometimes is they're going to go on a long trip and say they're going to be due an oil change in 500 to 1,000 miles, but they're going to go 4,000 miles. My recommendation would be change it before you leave. Get the oil changed, have the vehicle inspected before you go on your trip.
Well, yeah, the cost of scheduled or preparational maintenance versus the chasing a repair bill. We talked about this on a previous show, that it seems that some people are maintaining their vehicles and there are other people that are repair chasing. So explain what that looked like.
Well, you got people that basically maybe they change their own oil and they never have it really inspected. And so what happens, they keep going and going and going, and then a problem pops up. And by having the problem pop up, it could leave you stranded. Sometimes the tow bill is more expensive than the cost of the repair.
Well, and then there are people that are really religious about their scheduled maintenance, and then there's those that just really don't do anything until a breakdown occurs, and that can be a lot more expensive than having had made that commitment financially to scheduled maintenance.
Oh yeah, like one major thing would be like a timing belt. People, I've seen it before where they don't replace it, and all of a sudden it breaks. So now it goes from maintenance repair to catastrophic engine damage.
Full engine replacement. I mean, there's really nothing past that in most cases when a timing belt or chain.
Equipped, the vehicle's equipped. Maintenance and inspections are always a critical part of it, but we're always checking brakes. We're always checking rear ends on.
Probably one of the most overlooked, under-maintained, yet critical elements for the towing individual, and almost, in many cases, never service parts of the vehicle.
Well, and most of the GM trucks that we sell do have locking differentials in the back, too, so those should be maintained and serviced at least every 25,000 miles, 25,000 miles, you should be doing some kind of transmission service.
I'm guessing right now there are many people out there that may be saying right now, wow, I didn't even think about that, but you just think of the oil change stuff, but you don't think about that rear end. And then you mentioned the preparing and having a vehicle equipped to tow what you're towing. The dangers of having the tail wag the dog. Let's talk about the dangers of having somebody that just doesn't have the proper towing setup, what the dangers are, what it looks like when they're traveling, what it feels like. So somebody right now that may be under-equipped can sense while they're driving it, oh, this is what they were talking about.
Yeah, you work into, I mean, obviously it's very dangerous to pull a heavier trailer than what you're supposed to. But it's the wear and tear, the additional cost of repairs. I mean, it wears tires faster, brakes faster, suspension faster if you're overloaded. And obviously, we can guide the customer to have the proper fit trailer to truck. And I'm sure Tom can tell you that he's probably seen a lot of cases where we're pulling people, even dolly pulling, they hook up to pretty serious damage.
Before we continue, we do have a caller with a question. Randall, welcome to the Car Buyer Advisor. What's your question today?
Hey, Mitch, that's just a write-in question. I don't know if you can see it on the screen.
Okay,
He's listening by streaming.
Okay, I cannot see the question that's not large enough there. Oh, there it is. My current question is there really any standard for engine diagnostic readers? So I'm assuming you're talking, Randall, about the code reading machines, that the scanners that read codes. Is there any standard for the readers themselves?
Well, let me try to answer that. Well, when you say standard, you basically have a scan tool that will read the codes. And the codes, then you go into a book or you go into your software or you use your experience, and then you can bring up individually components that are involved with that code. Say if it was like EGR flow, P0401, that's lack of EGR flow. And it's not just the EGR valve. I mean, there's little solenoids and valves that control it. And what's nice nowadays is a lot of the newer vehicles, you can actually test individual solenoids from the laptop itself, but there's no just because you read a code, it doesn't mean what's wrong with the vehicle. You still need a technician to diagnose it.
Well, and I think what the question is there a standard for those readers themselves? Because some readers may not be able to go to that sensor like you're talking about. They just read a code. And I don't really know that the industry itself, it's really a really good question, has standardized or come up with a standard formula for those to be, industry standards. They have code readers, and some go farther down the line in what they're able to do.
Yeah, that's true. Most of them, you can buy inexpensive ones for probably $90, and it'll tell you the codes. But that's about the limit that you have on it. But it's pretty standard, though. I mean, they'll read pretty much any vehicle.
The ones that you're going to use, and Michelle's going to use, and George's going to use, and Sport House is going to use at our businesses. I mean, these are sometimes $20,000, $30,000 laptop scanners that really get into each specific unit. So really, scanners do vary, just like models of vehicles vary.
And then, go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so there is a wide range of scanners of code readers. Again, there are those which are mostly sold at places like AutoZone and the parts warehouses where it's just, it'll just tell you what a code is, but in the end, you still need to be able to know what that code means, and that's where the scanners like the professional shops have. Most professional shops have not just the scanners, but some sort of diagnostic equipment with I know a lot of the scanners, like some of ours, have lab scopes on them that'll tell us the runnings and going-ons of the car. It'll look further into the engine if there's a misfire. Which cylinder is it misfiring on? How many times has it misfired? And really what's going on with it? And so there is a wide range of variety, and usually they range from $100, like you said, Mitch, up to $30,000, depending on what you get.
Yeah, and so
there really is no standard.
I agree. I was just going to say the bottom line is there really isn't a standard. And one of the things that we've also cautioned on this show before is those ads that say, "Come in, we'll free scan your car" at some of the parts places and things like that, because they're just going to give you a code, and that doesn't always necessarily go to the next level in the scan tools equipment or have a professional diagnostic determining if it's that component that's failing or something before it that's setting off that component's code because it's reading an error. And then Chuck, we have on with an automotive question. Welcome to the Car Buyer Advisor.
How you doing, buddy?
Thank you. What can we do for you today?
My son recently graduated, and my wife and my son have been going out and looking at cars. I'm not in a position to buy a brand new one, but I'm looking for a good used one. My wife keeps talking to me about the certified used cars. What is basically the difference between a non-certified and a certified used car?
Well, I'm going to start with this one representing the Sport House on this question. Certified is a term that many manufacturers do. What they did is they came up with a standardized method where the dealerships would have to answer to a manufacturer's level because many dealers across the nation, franchise dealers, were selling less than quality vehicles. And they were giving the brand itself a bad reputation. And this is my opinion of it, my take on it. And so what the manufacturers did to kind of counteract that is they came up with a certified pre-owned standard. And if you could make that standard, then you could brand it with the manufacturer's certification. Then there's businesses that don't have a franchise attached to them, but they still have a standard that meets or even can exceed certified pre-owned standards in many cases. And I'll say that because at the Sport House, cars are graded, just like an Olympic gymnast would do a routine and then get graded from 0 to 10 on a point system and a decimal system. Cars at the auctions are rated from 0.0 to 5.0. And it's a 50-point grading system. You have 2.1 or 4.3. And many dealers, here's the thing that most consumers don't know when buying a used car, is that if you just take a $30,000 car, now I forget what manufacturer it is, year or model, but if you just found a car that had an average value of $30,000, it was a specific year, a specific model, and a specific number of miles on it, and the average condition, it had a $30,000 value. That would be a 3.0 vehicle in a scale of 0 to 5.0, a 50-point scale. A vehicle that was a 1.0 would actually cost a dealer $26,000, and a vehicle that was a 5.0 would cost a dealership $34,000. So there can be an $8,000 gap between a poorly treated car and an absolute perfect diamond. And what consumers all might get confused with is that they'll go out and they'll pick up a car because it looks like a better deal. And many dealers are attracted to the $8,000 savings, cosmetically altering, Band-Aid repairing poorly treated cars because they can buy them for less, recondition them, and then put them on their line and make greater profits or be more competitive and sell their cars quicker because their prices look better. And it's a real big problem that plagues the automotive industry in the used car market. Now, the standards that we have at Sport House are much higher than that. We really seek out the higher quality, 40, 45 point and above vehicles when possible, and make accurate disclosures on vehicles when they're sold. Now, George, out at Wild West Chevrolet, you have a certified pre-owned program. Let's talk about General Motors standards, because I'm of the opinion, and I could be wrong, so please correct me if I am, that the standard still can, even though it's a written standard, the standard can vary as to the interpretation by the dealership. And your standard out there is at the highest standard of the CPO standards.
Well, certainly. I mean, we look at certified pre-owned inventory, Chuck, and that's a great question, just so you know. We go through a rigorous 172-point inspection, and when I say we go through it with a fine-tooth comb, we do. And only the better GM vehicles will we certify. The one misnomer that a lot of people have is that when you do go with the manufacturer certification, it basically enhances the warranty that's on the vehicle already. Most of the vehicles anymore come with a 3-year, 36,000 mile or a 5-year, 100,000 mile powertrain. Some have smaller, some have less, but the GM one, which I am partial to, Chuck, comes with from the original in-service date that the car originally was put into service, you have a 4-year or 48,000 mile warranty on it, which actually enhances the factory warranty. You still get the 5-year, 100,000 mile service contract, but one thing that GM does, it includes the 2 years and up to 30,000 miles worth of service. So we're going to do your oil changes, your tire rotations, and a multi-point inspection every time you bring it in over the 2 years or 30,000 miles. So it is a great opportunity to look at a vehicle to get almost new with a good warranty. And most people that do buy certified originally do look at new, Chuck. So you're not alone in that equation, but you can usually save between, 15 and 20% from a brand new vehicle purchase. So it is a good way to buy, yes. So there are some good values out there. And like I said, most manufacturers have some kind of certified program that do enhance the factory warranty. And sometimes they even have maintenance available. So we've had, I'm very partial to GM, but in the same vein, I know Toyota and some of the other manufacturers have some kind of certifications, but I think the GM one's a little better.
And Chuck, I wanted to share something else with you, too. The inception of the Car Buyer Advisor, 7 months before we aired on our first radio show. And now we're also on 2 different local television stations as well. The first 7 months, what we did is we produced a series of car buying instructional videos to help a consumer navigate through an industry with variations in the standards from business to business. And one of the things that we put on there were 2 of the videos out of the 8 that are available are preliminary mechanical inspections that a layperson, a consumer, could do to a car. So if I'm a dealer and I'm going to do an inspection of a car coming in on trade, I'm going to be pretty thorough and check that car out. And what we did is we put into a video the instructions, what we looked for when we were getting inside that car and looking through it mechanically, and what problems can exist and how to detect those problems. We also produced a video about cosmetic inspections, looking for prior flood, hail damage, collision, prior paint work, things that you can do to help you weed out the really poor quality vehicles and just take them out of your selection model. One of the things in those videos we advocated is that you then have a third-party inspection, a mechanical, thorough inspection of the vehicle before you actually complete that purchase. Unless, of course, you're dealing with a business with absolute reputation for integrity that's completely disclosing everything for you, and you can verify it and see it. And not every business do I recommend trusting like that. And I say that right here on the air. There are very few businesses that operate in this industry with that level of integrity. And Tom with Preferred Automotive had something to share on this subject too.
Yeah, I was going to say too is if you are going to buy from a private party, I would ask for all the service records, see if it was properly maintained. Because one of the problems is I've seen in the past is you have two identical cars. They're asking the same identical price because they're just using a guide to ask for the price. One is mechanically cherry, and the other one is never maintained at all. But they're asking the same price. So service records would be very important.
Michelle, do you have anything to add to that too?
Yes, and I just wanted to advocate again. Engine light at some point was on, and that person has disconnected the battery or done whatever they've done to reset the car so that you don't know that there's actually a problem with it.
That does happen, Chuck, where all they have to do is disconnect the battery, that check engine light goes out, and then it takes somewhere between 40 and 100 to 400 miles on some cars, different driving conditions, for that problem to turn that light back on. And you won't find out about that until it's too late. One more thing, too, is, Chuck, reputable businesses will not mind you having your third-party inspection. At the Sport House, we welcome it. As a matter of fact, when people do it, we always sell the car because they get to find out what a quality vehicle we were representing. And Michelle, you offer those inspections mobily.
We do, and we will come out. We'll meet you at the person's house because a lot of times, if you're especially buying private party, the person doesn't want you taking the car. We'll meet you out there. We've even gone to several dealerships where they've welcomed us on the lot. We've inspected the vehicle, and like Mitch said, they've sold the car, but we do that.
Chuck, did you have any other questions on that one?
I do have a real fast question. We're definitely going to buy from a dealership, but I keep watching this commercial about Carfax. Does that have anything to do with a certified car?
There's a couple of things. There's Carfax, and there's also another very similar organization called AutoCheck. And honestly, I advocate checking them both because even as a dealer, I can't tell you the number of times that we're looking at both and one missed something. It's not an end-all, cure-all. It is certainly a tool for a consumer to use to try to find when there's something that has made it to a Carfax or to an auto check, but I cannot tell you the number of times that I have taken and looked at cars that show no prior collision report on them, on the Carfax or the auto check, and yet you can tell that fenders have been replaced because many of the newer cars, they have vehicle identification tags that if you pull them back, it's like those price tags that tear apart in pieces. You can't get them off without destroying the look of them. You can't get them off and reapply them. Well, when these fenders are replaced, they don't have the VIN tags on them, and you can tell. You can see parts that have been replaced under the hood, many times without the original manufacturers, with aftermarket parts. You can see the paintwork. You can see the difference in the orange peel or the sand marks underneath the paint, and none of that has hit the Carfax. So it's not an end-all, cure-all, but certainly if you find a vehicle with a ding on the Carfax, it does affect the value of the vehicle when you're done with it. George, you had something to share on that as well. Is like the Carfax part of the CPO process?
Yeah, and we do run Carfaxes. We run VIN incentive lookups. We also run, Chuck, we go in to make sure there's no open recalls on vehicles. So, and I think that's important also. But, yeah, we do subscribe to Carfax, and I think, when you look at Carfax, I think they do a pretty great service to the consumer because there are no hidden agenda there. So it has to be brought forth. So I would definitely ask for a Carfax, and that is part of our certification process, Chuck.
Awesome. Yeah. George, what dealership do you represent?
Wild West Chevrolet.
And let's make sure people know how to get a hold of you out there at Wild West Chevrolet that might be listening that want to also look at some of your certified vehicles.
Yeah, wildwestchevrolet.com. And you can call us at 775-463-3456.
And now, Michelle, you do also these inspections mobily. So if somebody was out shopping for a used car today and wanted, before they purchase it, to have you come out and take a look at it for them, how would they get a hold of you?
They would reach us at 2540 Sutro Street in Reno, or you can contact us via telephone, 775-200-4669, or via our website at service at nvmobileautoservice.com.
Now, also, Tom with Preferred Auto Care, and you specialize, and I want to go over this for a minute because you also do vehicle inspections on specific makes, and you have a policy if one doesn't pass.
Well, first of all, we're specialists on Honda, Acura, Toyota, Lexus, and Subarus. And by being experts, that's a big advantage because you know all the common failures on them.
And then you have a policy if somebody comes in and they bring you a car and you say, this is not a car worth purchasing.
Oh, yes. If the individual, if we do a vehicle inspection, the individual says, it's just not for them, because normally they're serious about buying it until we find something. And if they decide not to purchase that car, we'll inspect another one for them for free.
Now, Tom, your inspection price for a vehicle is how much?
$50.
And Michelle, if you go out mobily within approximately how many mile range, what do you charge for that inspection?
So for us, we'll go out as far as Cold Springs and as far south as Geiger Grade, and usually we charge $89. That's the call-out fee.
And that's even going to them. I mean, so,
yes.
Not that much more. And George at Wild West, what is your inspection fee?
We do a 27-point inspection at no charge to our customers.
And at Sport House, we have a 1-hour charge, which is under $100 to do a complete vehicle inspection on any of the exotic cars. I mean, you're talking about Porsches, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Bentleys, and everything else as well. I mean, we do it all there because most of our consumers have other vehicles, trucks, and ordinary, regular, everyday cars as well there. So, all of us offer those inspections, Chuck, and we're also willing to have you have our vehicles inspected as well. Did you have anything else there?
No, you guys have given me some great insight.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing that you can do as a consumer is not allow yourself to become emotionally involved, but take a step back, look at the car, be thorough, take the time to look it over. Again, if you want our videos on how to do that inspection process as a consumer, they're available at thecarbuyeradvisor.com. They're on our homepage. They're about $4 a piece. You can get the whole set for under $20. And it talks about leasing, is it right for you, and financing, how to protect your credit score and privacy. But really, the one on mechanical and cosmetic inspections, under $10 and about 20 minutes each, you'll really have a better chance as a consumer to level the playing field. That's what this is about, the consumer getting the value for their money. So thanks so much. I'm sure that there's so many people in our community right now that appreciated that question. Is that complete for you?
Yeah, you guys have answered it awesome. We're going to go out and do some car shopping today.
Yeah, perfect. And if you're out there as well at the south end of town, Sport House is located against the freeway at the South Meadows exit. And that's 9732 South Virginia. But you won't find it on Virginia. You have to actually face the window there at the corner and go into the business center to the left of it and find us in there. Hope to see you out there as well. You have a great day. The next subject would be that car that's been sitting all winter, or even that boat that's been sitting all winter. Before we get to that, we do have a caller online, so let's go ahead and take that call. Lee, welcome to the Car Buyer Advisor.
Thank you.
You have a question?
I have a question. It's probably very elementary to you all, but I've always wondered why you have to have a lubrication job with an oil change. Does the lubricant deteriorate, or I mean, I would think it would just stay there forever.
Well, that's a really good question, because you hear the expression lube, oil, and filter. I mean, everybody understands the oil and the filter, but Tom with Preferred Automotive, let's talk about what you're lubing and why you have to constantly lube.
Well, nowadays there really isn't very many to lube. Most of the new vehicles, like on the Toyotas, they have one lube point. It's a spline shaft, and you have to keep that one lubed, because if you don't, it starts to clunk. But as far as lubrication, about the only thing you can lube nowadays is, door hinges and stuff like that. I think the word lube, oil, filter is still there because that's what we've said for 50 years.
Well, in the old days, in the older cars, as many people are not in necessarily the current models out there, there's still things to lube. In the old days, what did we lube, and why did we have to do it at every oil change?
Well, that's because they had ball joints, moving parts. The lubrication the quality wasn't as good as it is nowadays. Even the rubber boots that help hold the grease inside wasn't as good. Nothing was as good, and even the metals weren't as good. So yeah, you had to lubricate them every time you changed the oil.
Well, and basically, you're right. I mean, they were more even exposed. So many of the things that we used to have to lube are now in sealed units, bearings and things like that. And like you said, ball joints, they can be very sealed now and have a lifetime packing of those lubricants. But in the old days, the lubricant was exposed to water and dirt. And if you didn't keep those things lubed, then your metal to metal started to grind on each other dry and wear down components.
That's correct, and most of the vehicles nowadays don't even have serviceable wheel bearings. You don't lube them; they're lubed from the factory, and until they go bad, you don't do anything unless they go bad, and then you replace them. But I mean, I've seen cars go 400,000 miles without having to be replaced.
Now, Michelle, you get into doing these mobile services for boats and for recreational vehicles and trailers and things like that as well while you're out in the field. So my question would be, for the boat and the recreational vehicle owner, what type of things are you lubing out there?
Well, for most of the stuff like that, I mean, on the trailers and stuff, you still have parts that you have to lube and grease. A lot of times when we go out, the biggest thing is servicing the wheel bearings. You have to repack them, that kind of stuff. You also have some of the bushings. I know on some of the field equipment, you still have a lot of bushings and stuff like that really need to be lubed. And even on my own car, even though it's a newer car, I know that the newer parts are much better than they used to be, and we still lube a lot of the stuff on my car. It has 300,000 miles, and I went 200,000 before I had to change a CV joint. So...
Yeah, so basically lubrication keeps things supple and noise-free and keeps the metal from grinding down and wearing down and causing premature wear. Did we get that question answered for you, Lee?
Yeah, well, I mean, does it drip or does it, or does it evaporate?
No, I think basically what it does is it just through use it wears down, or in the old days it would get dirty and need to be re-lubricated, or just dissipated from time and heat and water being thrown up underneath those chassis components and be washed away in many cases through the winter months. So a lot of that is just keeping things lubed and clean. Is part of that old lube, oil, and filter. But like we said, many of the cars today, the lube points are almost non-existent, that the technology's improved.
And I think we see a lot of that.
I've always wondered about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Michelle, you had something to add to that?
Well, I was going to say, I think that you still see a lot of the lube, oil, filter type stuff on the bigger trucks, and the trailers, that kind of stuff, because they have a lot of axles, U-joints, different things that still need to be taken care of that way.
And Zerk fittings on many of those things, too. Thank you for that as well. We have another caller. Bob on line 3 has a question for George about buying cars from out of town.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's a very interesting show. I really enjoy this.
Thank you.
Yes, I have. There's a lot of consumers out there that are probably interested in purchasing a vehicle. And I'm just wondering, is there an advantage or a disadvantage of purchasing one out of town?
So from where do you reside?
So I reside in Reno, but the competition is a lot of consumers are afraid to go to a dealership. They just they have that, they're skeptical about going in and shopping. It's just a lot of work.
Rightfully so. And one of the reasons why this show exists. So you're absolutely right. And there really is probably a number of things to ask yourself about going out of town. First of all, in the case of George Green at Wild West Chevrolet, there's a reason to go out of town, and out of town isn't that far. It's just to Yerington from Reno, still in our state, keeping it into our Nevada tax dollars. But let's talk about why, on a new car, included, that people would want to drive to Yerington, because that whole, what you just mentioned, Bob, that whole hating to go on to a new car dealership's lot feeling that you're going to get jumped, you're going to get put in a box and go back and forth all day, you're never going to know if you really got a good deal. Wild West Chevrolet really has a whole new take on how that plays out. So if you haven't heard this before, I'd like George Green to talk about their pricing strategy at Wild West Chevrolet and how they make it very easy and comfortable to buy a new car today.
Well, Bob, thanks for the question.
Sure.
Number one is that we do have ability to do shop online. So If you go to our website, you'll see everything is priced. But we do sell every new General Motors or Chevrolet at GM preferred price. So it's a price that's already deeply discounted. And then on top of that, you would be eligible for incentives. The real motivation for anybody to go out of town, for me, we know it's not convenient to be an hour and 15 minutes away because we always like to service what we sell. But in the same vein, we know people are driving to Idaho, flying to Idaho, going over to the country to try to think they can buy a vehicle for a better price. But what happens is, we like to keep our taxes in Nevada, but there is a choice. And what we're doing is we're just taking a couple steps back. We're upfront pricing. We don't use those addendum markup stickers on the vehicle. I know it can be intimidating to go into a dealership, but I can assure you that our people are trained and fully prepared to answer any of your questions, to make it hassle-free. And we do pay a lot for trade, so we do everything we can to make it easier for you.
And Bob, I want to add, because I know Wild West Chevrolet's pricing strategy, that preferred pricing is the price that General Motors puts on an invoice that was in the past reserved for General Motors employees or suppliers, factory employees, or suppliers to General Motors. And they're making that price available to the public 7 days a week on their website, at their dealership. You can't pay any more, even if you try, on every make and every model in their inventory 7 days a week, and that price is on the website. So if you want to take the hassle out of that new car purchase, Wild West Chevrolet is certainly the answer to that, and you don't have to go as far as into California and, like you said, keep the dollars in our state with a business that's worthy and revolutionizing the automotive industry. And at Sport House, we have a very similar policy. We have people that come to us. We offer a vehicle locating service for the people that are looking for used cars. And we will literally go out and do the work for them so they don't have to leave the state. We'll find the cars. We do many times. I can't tell you, probably a dozen times a month. We have people say, this is what I want. We find it through the lease return pool, one owner, clean Carfax, and then we go and hand inspect the vehicles and then make the purchase and charge a handling fee for that and take the hassle of negotiations out of it and just buy the car and charge them a fee above what an auction price would be for us. So the price ultimately is very fair to the consumer without that hassle. And I think that's what you're referring to. One part of it is, do I have to go out of town to get a fair deal? And the answer is no in a couple of cases, I can say.
Well, one thing, too, Bob, this is George. I live in Reno, so I commute every day. And so we do pickup and delivery. We do service. We do all kinds of things like that. So we do everything we can to make it as easy as possible for you. Am I making a profit selling you at GM preferred price? Of course I am. I'm in business to make a profit, and I want to be there for all of our customers in the future.
Well, I'm interested in a GMC truck, and it's. I've had friends go out of town to Kellogg, Idaho, to buy a car.
Certainly,
and I just think of the service part of it. If I purchase the car,
right,
is the service is that still good in this area of Reno? If I purchase the car out of town,
of course it is.
Yeah, part of General Motors' franchise agreement is they service all General Motors vehicles under warranty.
Well, great. I'm going to give you a call, George. We're old softball buddies. I remember you from softball in Sparks. And,
okay, sure.
I think if you're the right George Green, I used to be with Softball West Magazine, Bob G.
I know who you are.
All right. Well, I'm going to give you a call. I have a friend out that lives out in Earrington, and
excellent.
Jimmy Converse. He's in the transmission business. And,
sure.
And I'll definitely give you a call, George. It's very interesting.
And that phone number for you, just so
Thanks,
you have
Bob.
it handy, is 775-463-3456. A nice, easy number, 463-3456. Thanks for the question, Bob. That was a fantastic
one. Thank you. Very, very good show.
Thanks, sir.
And you know what, Rich, I do have something to add to that, and that was an excellent question. And really, I think that this is where the Internet has kind of made changes to this portion of the industry, because really it makes it a lot easier for people to shop. I don't know how many times we get calls from out of state where they have services like yours, like the Sport House, where they're looking for a car. They find us online to contact us to do that third-party inspection and take pictures all the way around.
Thank you.
Then
Thank you,
then
Michelle.
usually someone
We're out of
finds-
time. We want you to tune in next Saturday at 10 a.m. on 96.1 FM, 1270 a.m., the Car Buyer Advisor, and tune in tonight at 7:30 on Channel 2 CBS TV for TCBA TV, our television version of the Car Buyer Advisor. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week.
You taking the opportunity to tune into the Car Buyer Advisor. For more information, fairly priced automotive products and services, and links to today's guests, be sure to visit our website at thecarbuyeradvisor.com. Make sure to tune in every Saturday at 10 a.m. to become a more informed, educated, and prepared car buyer.